Hey, welcome everybody to a special edition of the Boone Podcast. It's our mid-season breakdown. We're joined this week by Tyler Kepner, a New York Times best-selling author. Of course, it's the Boone Podcast. I'm Rich Herrera. As we break down the first half of the season, and the boys will break out their crystal balls to tell you what's going to happen in baseball for the second half of the season. So let's welcome in Tyler Kepner, best-selling author, joining us here on the Boone Podcast. Tyler, how are you?
I'm all right, guys. How are you?
We're outstanding. Now let me bring in our second author. I'm not sure if you know this, Tyler, but since this podcast has blown up so big now that it's not,
There's my promo.
Bret has expanded beyond just baseball and everything else. He had a fellow author on the other day, Jack Carr, the author of The Terminal List, and did point out that, you know, there's an author that we have on every week on the podcast, and that's the aforementioned Bret Boone, who is a published author himself.
Yeah, I saw his book in the Mariners team store last time I was in Seattle.
See, Bret, I told you, it's still in the team store.
I'm an author. I'm an Emmy Award winner. Now,
wow.
I don't think I'm a real author, but I do have a published book. I don't think I'm a real Emmy Award winner, yet I have an Emmy. I don't have the physical Emmy, but I do. I'm a part of the broadcast, as we all know.
Why didn't you buy an Emmy?
Because I just had shirts made that said Emmy Award winner instead, and that's better to me than the Emmy. I felt bad. I said probably 4 words on my postseason simulcast 2003, so I didn't really feel deserving. Now the broadcast itself was deserving, but I figured the shirt was more
more your style.
Correct.
Well, I mean, listen, Tyler, if you do publish a book in the United States, it does go into the Library of Congress. So just along with your great works of literature, somewhere in the Library of Congress, somewhere in the Dewey Decimal System, there is a Bret Boone author that is somewhere within the Library of Congress.
Yeah, we're all measured by these numbers, right? So Bret has a career WAR rating, a career batting average, and a Dewey Decimal System rating. So I think you've done it all, man.
Pretty impressive, Bret.
Yes, I have. And my ghostwriter.
There you go. Who was your ghostwriter?
His name is Kevin. I'll think of it later.
Well, that's a good ghostwriter because he's just kind of invisible, right? Tyler, have you ever ghostwritten a book?
Kevin, the ghostly writer. No, I haven't. I have not. We have a policy where I can't go, do a book deal with someone who works for a team or something like that. So it would be kind of tricky. Yeah.
How hard is that to do?
Well, what it does, I mean, I've talked to lots of people who do it, and you talk to the subject of the book, the author of the book, for hours and hours, and then try to put it in his words, the way he sounds. It's funny, Bret, you probably know John Gibbons. Gibby came out with a book, and the ghostwriter got it just right because it sounded exactly like Gibby on every page. It was maybe he just did the transcript verbatim, but you got to make it sound like the author,
right?
That's the key, and that can be tough.
Well, my experience was this, and you're exactly right. Long hours. It was kind of a set call. Let's call it Monday morning, where the ghostwriter is prepared. He's got all his questions, shoots them at me. I sit there and basically have a conversation for about a half hour. He says, I'll see you Wednesday. We have a standing call Wednesday. He reads it back to me verbatim, how he wants to put it. We edit it. Exactly what you said, Tyler. I said, that doesn't sound like me talking. That sounds like you talk. So we'd have to switch some words around. And then as soon as that's done, boom, on to the next session. See you next Monday. Do that for about 7 or 8 weeks. And then at the end was the toughest because you have that official edit. And that took a while. That took more than a phone call where we'd go through it. Now that doesn't sound right. I know it did. We've already edited this, but we got to edit the edit. It's a long process, but an experience too. It was educational throughout. Don't know that I'd like to do it again, but I did it once.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be nice to have something if you're, someone who has an interesting life, to have it all down there, and you've got a lot of life to live, but to have it all down there in a book form for your kids and grandkids and whatever else, just to sort of say, this is the official my official take on me. That's kind of cool.
Tyler, your books, do you have an audio version?
I do, and I did them both. It was great.
You did them yourself. I did mine myself too. You sit in a chair. I felt like I was in. I felt like I was in timeout. And they just
Yeah,
have you strapped to this chair, and somebody on the mic saying, "Nope, that word doesn't sound right.
right.
Re-say that sentence," and you read the entire book. That was the toughest out of all of it for me.
Really? Yeah. The first day or two was the first day of both of them was tough for me. But then your vocal cords, I don't know, they get used to it or they get stronger. And it's great because they're always like, you need to take a break now. Here's a glass of water, and you're in this
Right.
padded room.
Yep.
So for the audio. It was fun though. The funniest thing was like coming back on the last day where you have to do pickups. They call them like, just a few words, and it takes like 5 minutes. You just go in and you say like, baseball or
Right.
like Roy Halladay or whatever, and then it's like, then you're out of there in 5 minutes. But just a few words, if they don't sound quite right, you got to come back and redo it.
So
Rich,
what's
the
it
more
like- Go ahead,
Rich,
Brett.
hold on. Let me cut you off before you come in again.
Okay, I'll just stand here.
I'll tell you, the more I listen to this, the more my little conversation here with Tyler, I'm starting to believe that I truly am an author. All right.
I'm not just
No.
busting your chops.
Carry on.
Do you
Carry
think
on.
I'm just here busting your chops?
Yes.
Well, a little bit. What's it like though when you walk into a bookstore and you see your book?
Oh, that's a great feeling. I mean, that's really cool. And then you want to see if the real baller move though is to go up and just take the books off the shelf, take a pen out of your coat and just sign it, put it back on. So a nice little surprise for someone.
Yeah.
And they buy your book and they say, "Oh, it's signed." Sometimes I try to be, legit, and I'll just go up to the cashier, and that's almost more of a baller move when you go up and you say, "Yeah, I wrote this book. Would you like me to sign it?" And they're like, "Oh, wow," but yeah, we writers don't get to feel that way much. It's very, very not very often that people want our signatures, but when you write a book, people like having it signed. So, yeah, I'll go in there and sign them, and that's always fun.
All right, folks, I'm going to tell you, if you're going to Seattle, I'm taking Booney into the team store, Brett. The last time I was there were like 4 copies of your book. I'm going to make you sign each of them, and we'll just leave them there and see who grabs them.
You got it.
All right, let's get into this. Because we're talking about Seattle. I'm adorned. If you're watching on YouTube or any of our clips, I'm adorned in my all-star gear because I'm ready to go. I'll be heading out there Wednesday. Brett will be there soon afterwards. Since it's our halfway breakdown at the all-star break, let's talk about the biggest things that we talked about before the season got started. And that was number one, first and foremost, the new rules. So grade the rule changes all over baseball and tell me, has it helped the game? And we'll start with Tyler Kepner, New York Times best-selling author.
I think it has undoubtedly helped the game. I mean, I think to have an average game time at 240, you just feel like things are moving along. Things are progressing the way they should. I remember we all remember games the last dozen years or more where it felt like the game was just in slow motion, and when are they going to get past the 4th inning or the 5th inning? It just, my God, we don't get those feelings anymore. It's a barrier to enjoyment that has been removed, and I think that's great. I think you look back and you're like, how did it take so long to get like this? Because these rules are great and the players are so talented. They might have not liked them a lot at the beginning, but they're fine. They've adapted, and that's the biggest thing by far. And I think it's terrific. I love it.
Brett.
Without a doubt. And I was the biggest skeptic. And I think there's pools. There's the players, there's the fans, and then there's the ex-players. And I would say, and Tyler, you'll probably agree with this, the ex-players are always the most skeptic because we don't want things changed from how it was when we played. You hear that when I played. I try not to be that guy that when I played, today's game is their game. My game was 15 years ago. But I have to say I'm very pleasantly surprised. I didn't think it was going to be that smooth of a transition. I'm with you, Tyler, on the swiftness. It's almost like I can predict. If the game kicks off at 6:00, I can predict where we'll be at 7:15. Whereas in the past, that spread was, who knows? It might be 4 hours and 15 minutes, and on a quick game, it'd be 2 hours and 50. Everybody's kind of in that window now of, we know when it's going to start, when it's going to end. Barring, of course, extra innings. But I think like I said, pleasantly surprised. I think the players are happy. I know from the coaches and the on field, the managers and the coaches, they're very happy with it. I think the fans are happy with it. They know what time their kids are going to get put to bed that night. They can be pretty confident with that. So all in all, and I can't believe I'm saying this, home run.
Yeah.
As a former broadcast director and broadcast executive, I always worried about whether it goes longer than 3 hours. But I think when we talk about the length of the game, we maybe miss something, because for me, it's not the length of the game that's gotten better. It's the action. It's the speed of the game. It's the pace of the game. Tyler, I'll tell you this. I would sit there and look at my phone more than I would look at the game 2 years ago. Now, I don't even pull the phone out of my pocket because I'm going to miss a play, because the action has gotten back to the pace that it makes it fun.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it really is the pace, and the quicker pace means a quicker game in the end. That's just the easy number to look at. But you're right. I mean, when you're actually watching the game, things happen quicker. There's less time in between, and I think it's not so quick that it's distracting. I mean, or not distracting, that it feels wrong. There's a few games that go a little quicker than you might like, but that's way balanced out by the avalanche of games that no longer last 3:30 or 3:40 for 4 hours. It's funny because Brett makes the point about how ex-players and even old school guys like me, fans like often don't like them tinkering with the game. But I think in this way, they just tinkered with it to get it back to its more natural rhythms. I think it was worse the way it had sort of, players had kind of, not bent the rules, but just used the rules to their advantage. I mean, taking that extra breath, that stepping out, that being, that works for the hitter, but it's not good for anybody else in the ballpark or the viewing public. So I just think the game had kind of devolved a little bit, and we needed to we just needed to recalibrate it. And if that took some more rules, well, we don't like rules, but if it takes a couple of rules to recalibrate it to the way baseball was meant to be, I think I'm okay with it.
Now, Brett, I know this isn't your game. Your game was, like you said, 15 years ago. But how would you like to play under these new rules where there's no lollygagging and it's let's get after it, let's go, boom, 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 boom?
Well, I wasn't a guy that took a long time. I don't think I was the quickest guy, but as long as I knew him up front, I think the spring training, that cushion, that buffer was good for the players to get used to it. And as a hitter, as soon as I know, well, no, I can't walk around and make a spectacle of anything. I got to get back in the box. For me, this would have been an easy adjustment. The only thing I'd like to see, and I think that it will be addressed going forward, is once you engage the pitcher at the 8-second marker, that pitcher has 8 seconds to hold that ball on you. I think there's a little bit of a mini advantage, nothing big, to that pitcher having the ability to dictate when he delivers the pitch. In the past, if he was holding it on me just from a strategic standpoint, I had the ability to call timeout and step out. Now I only have one timeout. So I don't know how you fix that. Maybe it goes to you have to engage at the 5-second mark. So there's just not a longer pause. But other than that, and I'm really nitpicking right now, I think it would be a very easy adjustment for not only myself, but for the majority of the players that played in my generation.
Okay, Tyler, you've got your ear to the ear to what's going on in the game. What other changes? What other rule changes do you think they might be considering? Because these have been such a smashing success.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about all the things they've done here recently. It adds up to a lot. The extra inning rule in particular, I think. They've flirted with some real radical changes that have not caught on. The moving the mound back kind of thing. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the next big innovation will probably be the automatic ball strike. The robot umps, whatever you want to call it. I think the technology is just going in that direction where eventually it'll be smoothed out enough to where they'll put it in. I don't love that idea, but again, it will take away a lot of the framing, which always sort of bugs me when you see catchers like moving the glove so dramatically, like we used to do in Little League, like as a joke almost. and so I think that's kind of gotten out of hand. And I think with the K zone or whatever on every screen, it just makes the umpires, who really do a great job, it makes them look bad. When you see a ball that's outside and fans get all upset, I think they're going to try to streamline that so that's not a big talking point anymore. I think that'll eventually happen. Don't you, Brett?
I do, and I agree with you. These umpires today, it's unfair. The technology that's out there, everybody's the armchair quarterback at home because of those stupid white lines. I've talked about it many times, and I don't even think that's actually how the umpires train. Not on that box. It should say at the top as a disclosure at the beginning of the game for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Because everybody's an expert now, myself included. I get caught up in it, and I'll just catch a pitch here and there. Oh, how could you call? Oh, wait a minute. Let's get back to reality. To the game for 100 years has been no, and as the eye that I have for the game, I can sit there on TV and call strikes, balls. It's pretty easy. That pitch is off the plate because I've seen so many. Now with this box, I can have a guy that's hasn't had a jock on since junior high tell me I'm wrong because it hit that little white square. And I said, well, you don't understand the elevations of a split finger fastball, that if it grazes that, it doesn't mean it, and it's tough to explain. So I think we are going that way. As much as I'm on board with you, Tyler, I like the human element of the game. I hate to see it taken away from the umpires. I think in the interim, though, I think the first thing they're going to do, and I see it in the minor leagues right now, is that tap on the head. What I'm challenging that strike right there.
Yep.
It seems like our game is so full of challenges, and there hasn't been a lot of pushback on it. I think that's going to be the next thing before they go to the robo umps. Is okay. The hitter can challenge that ball or strike, and I don't know what the consequences are if the hitter's wrong or if he's right. I have no idea, but I think you're going to see that as the next thing because I see it in the minor leagues, and challenges seem to be accepted in today's game.
All right, let's move on. Shohei Ohtani. How much ink have you written this year about Shohei, Tyler?
I mean, he's the best story in baseball. It's really just wild to think about how good he is, how elite he is on both sides. If he was just a standard major leaguer, a solid everyday starter and starting pitcher, that'd be amazing. But the fact that he is so great at both is just wild. I mean, it's totally bananas to think that we have a player who is as good as there is as a hitter and as a pitcher at the same time. And it's great to see the Angels, finally, having some hope of getting to the playoffs, and that these home runs and everything are in the service of contender. Is really cool. But no, I mean, he was just that the month of June for him was ridiculous. And he's must watch, man. You got to watch when he's pitching, when he's hitting, because you really never know what you're going to see. And he's really the best thing about sport. He's what we love. He's a personification of what we love about sports, because he's doing things that we marvel at and that we never thought possible. And that's one of the reasons I watch sports, to see things that I can't do and that I didn't know that anybody could do. He's doing them.
Booney, we talked about this when you first got to the big leagues. You didn't want to take any days off, and then Lou came to you. All right, kid, you ready to take a day off? I know Ohtani's DHing, but he hasn't taken a day off this season. And to put up the numbers that he has, I just don't know if we have enough time or enough words in English language or any language to talk about how incredible he is.
No, he's remarkable. I went through his numbers a little bit. He's leading the league in homers. He's leading it in RBIs. He's the OPS leader. He leads every category, total bases. But what stood out to me, he also has got 99 hits. He's almost on pace for 200 hits, which is a whole different thing in itself. He's playing every day. He's pitching. He's got 95. He's got 127 punch outs. He's right at a 3 ERA on that side of the ledger. I almost am embarrassed for myself that I fawn over a player as much as I do. But he's fawnable. I mean, he's that guy that has broken that glass ceiling. I never thought I'd see this in my wildest dreams in my lifetime. The level that he does it at, the fact that he steals bases on top of it. He's got that great smile, he's the cover of the magazine as well. I mean, so he's got that personality with the ridiculous numbers. And the only thing that scares me to death is it's almost like I'm thinking, isn't this too good to be true? You can't be that good of a player and stay in one piece when you have so many different things you've got to do. But so far, so good. But I still, and I've used the example of, I wish we could just wrap him in bubble wrap and make sure we have this player for as long as possible. I don't know. I think the fact that I've run out of words, I think everybody's run out of words.
I got a new one. You ready, Tyler?
Yeah.
Let's break him down. Hitting, power, pitching, and find some comps to try to figure out how we can describe him, because he's such a unicorn. So let's start pitching wise. Give me some comps, some other players that are comparable to him on the mound that you could compare him to. And you could use his story. You don't have to use today's pitchers. You can do any pitcher in history or any pitcher that you've seen. Who does he remind you of?
Well, I mean, we're talking about a guy who strikes out a lot of hitters and doesn't give up a lot of hits. So, I mean, he's hurt a lot, but at his best, that Jacob deGrom is that way, right? I mean, Jacob deGrom strikes out a ton, and he's really hard to hit. So I kind of think of him as of deGrom-esque as a pitcher. I don't know how that strikes you, Booney.
Booney, who's his comp?
Similar.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, just basic comp, past pitchers. Nolan Ryan. I mean, he's Nolan Ryan. He's got that type of stuff, and I don't think deGrom's a bad. I think deGrom healthy on the mound 100%, which we rarely see.
Right.
I think is the best pitcher in the world. Shohei's not far behind, but I think if we're going to compare them, no. But as far as comps for this conversation, I think that's more than applicable here. He's that power guy that strikes everybody out. Every time he takes the mound, he's capable of pitching a no-hitter. I know he hasn't pitched one, but he's capable. He's got that type of stuff. He's got no-hit stuff every time he goes out.
Okay. Hitting-wise, just hitting-wise, not power, just hitting-wise, give me a comp, Brett. Who does he remind you of?
He really has such an unusual swing, because it's kind of has some Japanese influence and a lot of
Ted
the
Williams,
that
Ted Williams science of hitting that a lot of players over there have read now that's been translated. Sure.
But it's, man, because he kind of does have an Ichiro swing.
Right.
Only it's the power version.
Yes.
That style of walking out of the box, he lifts up his toe, he sets it down, and it's just, I don't know who he reminds me of, but Freddie McGriff at his best. But it's different. Right. I don't think it's not like anything we've ever seen before, because it has that Japanese influence to it just from growing up in Japan, and that's how they teach it. And you'll see all the Japanese hitters, they're all a little bit different than we are.
The hips start a little different. The toe starts a little different.
It's that running to first before you're actually running to first. That's just how it is in Japan. They're taught that way from a young age. So he's got that Japanese influence. The guy I saw, Matsui, played for the Yankees years ago.
Godzilla.
He was the first one that kind of broke away from that Japanese style of hitting, but he still had a little bit of it in there. I think Ohtani's the same way. He's still got a little bit of it in there that you can notice to the naked eye, but he's putting on a power display that we've never seen.
Yeah, and he runs so well. I mean, I think of, Shohei. He'll be 29 this week, so he's a little bit older. But when Ken Griffey Jr. was 27, he led the league. It was his MVP year. He led the league in runs, home runs, RBIs, slugging percentage, and he stole 15 bases. That was the time of his career when he was stealing about 20, 24 the next couple of years. Enough to let you know what that he could really fly. when he needed to. And I look at Ohtani now. He's leading the league in homers, RBIs. He's got 11 steals, leading slugging percentage. Sort of peak Griffey, where all of those athletic skills were on display at once. I kind of see that in Ohtani too. I mean, Pete Griffey was like a low 300s hitter with like a 390 on base, 385 somewhere on base, and that's pretty much what Ohtani is this year. So I think you think of Ken Griffey Jr. at his best, mid to late 90s with Seattle. That's what we're seeing with Ohtani right now from a production standpoint. Boone, was much better on like the technique standpoint, but sort of from a production standpoint, from a raw numbers and output, he's prime Griffey.
All right, let me stay with Tyler. Power. Who does he compare with?
Well,
30 home runs a week before the break.
Yeah, you're talking about, and a lot of them are tape measure shots, and they're all fields. I'm trying to think. Like, I remember Tomey. Tomey could hit it out everywhere. He could hit out to left, and when he pulled it, he would just he could send it a mile. So that, I mean, Jim's a much bulkier guy, physically than Ohtani was, but I kind of think of that all fields power, but tape measure to right, as a similar guy like Tomey.
Brett?
I think Tomey's a great example. I pick any of the great sluggers of our time, and Ohtani's right there. He hits the ball. He hits the ball out the other way. He mishits balls and they go out the other way. I mean, it's overly impressive. Carlos Delgado used to do stuff like that. But I think Jim Tomey is the best comp, because Jimmy line to line was as much as anybody. Bonds could hit balls like that. I'm trying to stick with the left-handed. Of course, a Griffey Jr. Kenny, from the day he got to the big leagues, had opposite field big time power. But it's just instead of just comparing him to somebody, I just think right now, as much power as anybody in the game to all fields, including the guy that's kind of the top. When you think of the top power, obviously a Judge. But Giancarlo Stanton, as far as distances he can hit a ball, Ohtani's right there with the top line-to-line power.
So we've gotten 6 different categories of comps. 5 of them have been Hall of Famers. That just says how difficult it is to explain how great this guy is. Let me ask you this, Tyler. I've seen him get better every year that he's been in the big leagues. I know he was injured, but I've just seen his game rapidly get better. 29 years of age. Have we seen the best of him yet?
Well, we're probably seeing the best of him right now. I mean, he'll. I always, the temptation is always to say like, oh, he could get better and better, but it's hard to imagine him getting much better than this, right?
How are you gonna get better than this?
Yeah, he's 29, so he's right in those peak years. And he's the best at everything. So I don't know. That's the funny thing, right? Is he's going to get this record contract, and the best may be behind him, but what's in front of him, as long as he stays healthy, is still going to be Hall of Fame level production. So I mean, everybody has a peak, and this is probably his peak, and that's no insult, because this is a pretty amazing peak.
Brett, is that a clown question?
No, it's I consider the source. No, I'm kidding, Rick.
You see, that's why I'm a sports talk show host. He's a New York Times bestselling author, and you've got all that hardware behind you.
It's not a clown question, but I couldn't imagine him being better. I've played with a lot of great players. I think in a day and a time right now where average isn't put at a higher premium or considered higher premium, I think it's wrong. But the fact that players today aren't hitting 300 like they used to, Ohtani is. Mm-hmm. So that to me is even more impressive, when that's not really the bar, and what ownership tells you, or the market says you get paid upon. It used to be it was average home runs and RBIs. Now they've taken the average out of that. The fact that he's still hitting 300 is it's even more impressive to me, on top of everything else. So I couldn't imagine Ohtani you look at last year, he was unbelievable. I thought he should have won the MVP. Year before, he did win the MVP. So you thought he possibly couldn't get better. Well, this year he's even having better numbers than the last two. So who knows? Is this the top? I couldn't imagine getting to a higher level of performance than he's doing both sides of the ball.
I know a lot of the stories have slowed down a little bit, Tyler, but what are you hearing as far as his future?
Yeah, I think the fact that the Angels are good can only help them. I mean, he talks about how he wants to win, understandably. And yeah, it's not the Angels are a juggernaut, but they're over 500 and they're kind of in the mix. So if they can make a push and maybe make some noise, I think it'll be harder to leave. I think ultimately he'll probably go where the most money is. That's what most guys understandably do. And I've always felt all along that the Dodgers have been, the way they've structured this past offseason, a lot of one-year deals. Seems to me like the Dodgers are positioning themselves to just make an all-out run at Ohtani. You've got the Mets, whose owner has so much money, and Billy Epler, signed him to the Angels, so the Mets always have to be lurking. But I could see the Angels just especially if they have a good second half and winning and maybe getting some momentum. I could see them, stepping up and making a huge offer. And Ohtani, I don't know him enough. I don't know if any of us know him enough really to know his motivations, but he does have a really great thing going in Anaheim, and to change out of his comfort zone, I don't know if he really wants to do that.
And I go back to it. He picked Anaheim, right?
Right.
He decided that's where I want to go under Billy Epler. But for everybody that I know in the Dodger media and the New York media are just pulling at him like there's nobody's business. But I also go back to he could have gone anywhere, and he chose to go to the Angels. So we'll see if he stays. All right. Let's get to some wrap. Well, let's get to the biggest bust. I guess that's a story. So we're watching everybody right. Biggest bust of the first half for you, Tyler, is who?
For me, it's San Diego. And you could say San Diego, the Mets, or St. Louis. I mean, put them all in there. They've all been really, really disappointing, and the White Sox too. But I would probably say the Padres most, just because they got the furthest last year. I mean, they got to the LCS and they were getting Tatis back, and they got Bogarts, and there's just this accumulation of big names and talent. That the fans really got excited for. I mean, I think in San Diego, to me, it's more disappointing just because also they haven't had as much winning as St. Louis or even the Mets in recent years, and this seemed like the start of something big, and instead they find themselves fourth in the division, which is where they always kind of were anyway. But now they're spending a ton of money, and there's this sort of feeling of, oh, it was all building to this. Like, maybe they can turn it around. But the fact that Arizona has leapfrogged them, and that the Giants have come back to be a strong team, and the Dodgers are still good, I got to say it's the Padres even more than the Mets, with all the Mets are spending.
Brett, same question.
I think all those four mentioned are candidates. I would even add, and even though this year I didn't get fooled and didn't pick them, but on paper they were still the most talented team in that Central and the AL, and that's Chicago White Sox. I could add them. They continue to disappoint the last 2 or 3 years with the personnel that they have. That being said, San Diego, this is supposed to be the best offense in the game on paper. When you take the four players, an older Nelson Cruz, but definitely a guy in the clubhouse that can mentor these four MVP annual players that are all in the lineup at the same time, and they're where they are, 14th in the league at hitting. That's unbelievable to me. But I'm going to go with the Mets. They're 19 games out now. That's a testament to how good Atlanta may be. Atlanta is a great team. But the fact that they're sitting here at the All-Star break and they're 19 games out with the biggest payroll in baseball, Cohen coming in, doing whatever it takes, and here we sit. We're hearing a lot of calls now of Buck Showalter, who a year and a half ago was the greatest thing in the world in New York, and now all of a sudden he's the worst player in the. It's the way our game is. It's the way that it is, especially in New York, Tyler. You know that for.
Yeah.
personal experience. It's just the way it is. But for me, it's the Mets. They're the most disappointing at this point, and I could pick any one of those four mentioned.
Okay, let's go rapid fire on why some of these teams have had a great first half and some of these teams have had a surprising first half. Tyler, what's the secret sauce for the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Well, I mean, Corbin Carroll's been amazing. They made a tremendous trade with Toronto that got them a couple everyday players, and Moreno and Gurriel, and both of them have been good. And they've got two real horses at the top of the rotation with Gallen and Kelly, even though Kelly's out a little bit now. So they've been surprising for sure. But solid bullpen, and Ketel Marte has been back, and Christian Walker's been good. So they got more offense than I would have thought.
Booney, Arizona.
I thought Arizona was going to be better. Didn't think they were going to be this much better at this point in the season, coupled with the San Diego debacle to this point. I didn't think in a million years they'd be the top of the division right now. These guys can really offense. For me, in the end, it's all said and done. They don't pitch enough.
Okay,
especially
Atlanta.
for that division.
Atlanta, Booney. You were high on Atlanta in our preseason breakdown. Tell me what the secret to the Atlanta Braves success has been.
I don't even know where you start there. Best team in baseball for me, hands down, top to bottom. They pitch number one, offensively number one. They've got stars all over the place. Acuna is unbelievable pace when you couple in the stolen bases. You've had Wright and Fried on the shelf, and you're doing it in spite of that. Like I said, number one in the league in pitching, with two of your big cornerstone guys from a year ago out. Hopefully they get them back and healthy. You can go from Olsen to Acuna to Albies to Riley to Ozuna to Arcia, the shortstop, who's an all-star this year. Top to bottom, they're the best team in baseball.
Tyler?
They really are. I mean, there's no way around it. To lose those two starters to injury after only a handful of starts, and to still be where they are. I mean, they've got power up and down the lineup everywhere. Everybody can hit it out. Arcia replacing Swanson, especially after Grissom, they thought Grissom might be the guy. That's been tremendous. I mean, I don't think you counted on that. But there's no let up in that lineup. And even without Fried and Wright, I mean, Strider and Elder and Morton are, a legit top three, and they figure out the rest of it. Every time there's a challenge series, every time there's like they got to face the Phillies or the Marlins or some team that's far behind them, and they really just take it to them. I mean, sweeping the Marlins over the weekend, they took it to the Phillies recently. They've really asserted themselves, and that's one prediction I think that me and a lot of people have gotten right so far, because they've been just outstanding.
All right, we'll stay in that division. Miami has been better than expected. Tyler, what's their secret?
Well, they can really pitch. I don't know that they can hit enough, but they have surprised me, I got to say. I mean, I thought they'd be a pesky team, kind of a team that would make some noise and annoy you. But Skip Schumacher, he should get a lot of credit. He's done a real good job there. They're playing over their heads, I think, right now. And the Braves, kind of smacked them down a little bit. But got to give him credit, even without Sandy Alcantara having a good year, and he has not had a good year at all. They've managed to, be a lot more than the sum of their parts.
Brett, let's jump ahead to Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, it's been exciting. I mean, it's such a weak division. It's anybody's game. Early on, Rich, you remember we were talking about, could Pittsburgh win that division? I look at the division, it's so weak. I'm going, why not Pittsburgh? Well, now I'm sitting there going, why not Cincinnati? I think there's been a lot of buzz with the LA de la Cruz. I think he's a future, he's going to be a star for years to come. He's the full package. He hits, he runs the bases at an elite level. When push comes to shove, I think it's been a feel-good story. Cincinnati's been out of the news for a lot of years now. I'm definitely happy for a buddy of mine, David Bell, who's having some success right now. That being said, is it good enough? You're only going to have one team come out of that division for the
Right.
playoffs. Who's it going to be? And I still am not at a point where I could say, oh, Cincinnati for sure. No, anybody. You could flip a coin right now. Is it Milwaukee? Milwaukee's got the experience. They've been there, done that several times. Where the other teams you're looking at in this division, Chicago, with St. Louis being the disappointment that it is in the basement. I don't think they're going anywhere. But any of the other four, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Cincinnati, Milwaukee. If I had to put my money right now on someone in that division, I'm going to go with the stalwart that's been there, done that, and that's Milwaukee.
Tyler, San Francisco Giants, what's been the secret to their success?
Well, over the winter, they tried to get Aaron Judge. They tried to get Correa. It was kind of an acknowledgement that they needed more offense. And while they haven't had that one, beast of a hitter, they've pieced it together. A lot of part-time guys, sort of the way they did it a few years ago. But they've gotten some, really high level production from some guys who you wouldn't have maybe expected. Lamont Wade Jr. and JD Davis. Michael Conforto has made a nice comeback, and Peterson's been good. So, I don't know. And obviously the catcher Patrick Bailey has been a real good find. So I don't know if they have like a lot of staying power, but I mean they do what they need to do every day to win a game, and that sounds very basic, but they're really good at that, at figuring out which pieces work best and where. And they've gotten tremendous late game bullpen too. I mean, with Doval and the Rogers brothers, they don't lose a lot of leads.
All right, let's jump over to the American League, guys, real quick, rapid fire. Tampa Bay, what are they doing right, Tyler?
Well, they've just figured it out. I mean, it's a lot of the same guys as last year, but they're doing it better. They're really controlling the strike zone. They've gotten elite performances from McClanahan and Rosarena. They're a lot of fun to watch. They beat you in a lot of different ways.
Texas, Boone.
Wow. Texas, once again, another one of those teams I thought they were going to be better, much better. They pitch, they hit. It's the best offensive team in baseball, and I don't say that as much as Atlanta's the best team in baseball, and their offense is electric. I think Texas might even be a little more electric than Atlanta. It's going to be tough to see in the long run. Can Texas pitch enough? They're doing it so far. Evaldi's picked up the slack. Gray has been unbelievable in that number 2 hole. Obviously, you lose to Grom. And for me, that was that obviously for anybody, that's a difference maker. We'll see. Pretty darn impressive right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball. There's best team, I think, in the world offensively.
Tyler, Baltimore.
Baltimore has really seen their young stars kind of come together there. I wonder a little bit about their pitching long term, but they've gotten tremendous bullpen work at the end. 2 all-stars there at the end of the game. With Felix Bautista, the closing, and then Yenier Cano setting them up. So, they protect the leads they're supposed to protect. Tyler Wells has been really good in that rotation. And, they've gotten Austin Hayes, an all-star, and obviously Rutschman and Henderson doing their thing. So exciting young team.
All right, let's talk about MVPs. Who do you see being the AL and NL MVPs, Tyler?
Well, Mr. Ohtani is probably the easiest MVP call of all time.
Take it to Vegas, folks,
for the American League. Before the season, I talked about on this podcast, I predicted that Ronald Acuna Jr. would be 40-40, and he's almost got the 40 steals, and he's halfway to the homers. So I would stick with that Acuna pick. Feel pretty good about it.
Boone?
To midway point, without a doubt, Acuna in the NL.
For the whole season. Who's going to win it at the end of the year?
Who's going to win it? I think Acuna's still going to win it. Staying on that topic. There's a lot of formidable guys, Arise, that story in Miami. Freddie Freeman with LA, who with all the other great stories in baseball doesn't get talked about that much. What a great. When I see Freddie Freeman hit, I still say it to this day. If my kids are in the room, I'll say, see that man right there? That man can hit. And I think with all the stories going on in baseball, you don't hear about Freddie Freeman. Olsen in Atlanta. There's so many guys, but I'm going to stick with Acuna on the other side. We don't even need to discuss it. We've already discussed it earlier for about 20 minutes earlier. Ohtani.
Okay. Let's go rapid fire. Give me the 3 American League division winners. Start with you, Brett.
3 American League, Tampa over in the East. I think I think when it's all said and done, once again, matching the National League Central, which is a horrible division, the American League Central is, I think, just as weak. When it's all said and done, I think it's going to be Cleveland. I think it's going to be Cleveland top to bottom. I still don't think it's going to make a difference. And then we'll go over to the West. I hate to say it. There's a lot of feel-good stories going on right now. But I think in the end, I think the World Series champion Houston Astros are going to be on top.
Tyler?
I will go with Tampa Bay, and I'll stick with Texas. I'm a believer there. And the Central is just so bad. But I think there's more in there for Cleveland. I think they're creeping up on Minnesota, and Minnesota just they've been in first place most of the first half, but they've underachieved. I'm going to go Tampa, Cleveland, and Texas.
Nationally, Tyler.
National League, Atlanta for sure, best team in baseball. I'm going to go the Brewers because I don't think the Reds. I think their pitching is just a house of cards. I mean, they're such a fun team, but eventually that pitching is going to catch up to them. And out west, I'm going to go Dodgers. Sorry to do it. The Diamondbacks, they've been a great story, but in the end, I think the Dodgers' overall strength will prevail. And now they've got Arias back; they're starting to get healthy again.
Booney.
I'm going to echo that. It's definitely Atlanta. I think in the end, because of the Central is so weak, that experience will prevail, and that's why I'm going to stick with Milwaukee. The only interesting thing over there is because they can pitch a little bit with the emergence of Steele, Stroman, Hendricks. Cubs might make a run at it, but I think it's going to be Milwaukee, and I'm going to go with the Dodgers too. I think experience is going to prevail. The Dodgers aren't the Dodgers they've been the last 5 or 6 years. I think for that division, though, I think they're going to prevail.
All right, factor in wild cards and everybody else. Who's going to make it to the American League Championship Series? Who's going to make it to the NLCS? Start with Booney. Who's your Final Four?
Final Four is Atlanta, the Dodgers, Tampa, and the Houston Astros for me.
Mr. Kepner?
I'd love to have a kind of a wild card come out of it, literally like last year with Philadelphia. But yeah, let's throw the Phillies in there again. Sure, why not? Phillies, Braves in the LCS, just like '93, and then Tampa Bay against Texas. Let's go with those Rangers and Bruce Bochy.
Gotta love Boch
again. Yeah,
gotta love Boch. All right, who wins it all, fellas? And I will. You know what, Brett? You spoke first. You have to tell me. Put your name on it. Who's going to win the World Series?
Atlanta Braves. Simple.
Wow, he didn't even genuflect for a minute, Tyler. He just came out and said it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd go with Atlanta too. I think I've seen quite a bit from them to know that they're the best team in baseball, and it's not particularly close for me.
You heard it here first, folks. That's their picks. Tyler, what are you working on? All-Star break, All-Star game to Seattle?
Yeah, I got some All-Star stuff. I got some really cool Hall of Fame type stories coming up to that event, July 23rd. So it'll be out there soon enough. I don't want to spoil it, but I got a real special story I'm working on regarding the Hall of Fame pretty soon. So, and I'll be out there in Seattle too.
Are we going to hang out?
Oh, sure. Yeah, man.
Booney, are you buying us lunch?
Rich, I hang out enough with you. I might buy Mr. Kepner a cup of coffee or a sandwich, but no, I'm kidding. I'm looking forward to seeing both of you out there. I'll be out there on Friday for all the festivities. Check me out. I'll be. I don't know. I'm as much as it's silly. I'm feeling a little pressure. I'm starting to think about this softball game, especially if the fences are brought in. I think the city of Seattle is going to expect me to hit some homers. My swing is kind of mediocre right now, but I'll be doing that Saturday night, and then looking forward to that. I wish the Mariners were in a better position this year. Yeah. Everybody thought they were going to be to add a little more buzz to the city. But going back, 20 some odd years ago, 22 years ago, to the last time the All-Star game was there, it was pretty awesome. The city really turned out. They did a first class, great job. I'm sure they will again. It's a shame the Mariners aren't doing a little bit better, but I'm looking forward to going up there. It's always fun for me to spend some time where I spent a lot of fun years.
Tyler, we'll have to drop Boone's name a couple places just so we can get in.
Yeah. He's the golden ticket. Brett, I just want to see you do that front ways bat flip that you were famous for when you hit some bombs in that softball game.
Right, because you know that's going to be the theme from the fans. It's Booty, you got a bat flip.
Well, to want that. Yeah,
the bat flip, you got to hit the homer. So
yeah.
I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
You don't want to flip on a double or a pop up.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, Tyler, should he? We had this discussion the other day. Does he bust out the eye black? Because he's an old man now. He's going to have sleeve on his elbow. He's going to have the knee brace. Does he bust out the eye black for the softball game?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't start doing what they do now with all like the designs in the eye black. That's a little too much. I don't think
Tyler,
that's Brett's style.
I think they call that drip.
Drip.
Yeah.
See, Tyler, now you know. If you can work that into one of your New York Times pieces, I'd really appreciate
Rich,
it.
I have drip.
Rich, I think you've hit it on the head. I'm too old for that. Even if I'm that old guy trying to be the fun young guy and hang out with the new players, it's like, for me, maybe a wristband, a sleeve, but I think with the eye block getting crazy with it, I think I've passed that age limit. So now I'm probably not going to go with the eye block.
I just want to see Jenny Finch give him one good rise ball and let him take a swing at it, Tyler. That's what I want to see.
I want no part of that.
He knows his limits. All right.
Yeah, everybody knows their limits, and my limit is the podcast is over because you guys have work to do. Tyler Kepner, New York Times bestselling author, New York Times baseball columnist. Thank you so much. Whenever we get a chance to have you on the podcast, it's a lot of fun. I look forward to spending some time with you in Seattle this week.
Yeah, guys, always enjoy it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tyler.
And, of course, Bret Boone. Hey, don't forget, check us out. Share us. Give us a rating. Give us a review. It helps the podcast quite a bit. So next time we'll talk to you, we will be in Seattle for the All-Star game. And Bret will have a full recap of his festivities and frivolities in his former hometown, Seattle. So we look forward to having you join us for the next podcast. Until then, thanks, everybody.